I guess we have to talk about why we believe that it's not okay to take a gun and try to kill your enemies in this way. Um, and I guess part of this, part of the calculus, is they have run out of the ability to persuade. In other words, they've come to a point where they're frustrated because their efforts at persuasion are failing. Their efforts at the ballot box are failing. And so I think in that frustration, they say, well, we've got to resort to violence because people aren't listening, as though they actually had arguments, which alas, they do not.
And coming back to a key point you were making there, yes, lots of these people believe Donald Trump is literally Hitler. But you can only get there if you're programmed to think that by a relentless narrative going back as long as I can remember. They were doing this to Bush, too. They were doing this to Reagan. They weren't doing it with the same intensity yet. However, you'll recall in 2008, there was that picture of John McCain as this blood-smeared Dracula figure. You know, there's been this demonization and dehumanization of people on the right for as long as I can remember, and it's worse than that. I wouldn't consider John McCain to be a particularly right-wing figure. George W. And yet they were literally Hitler too, just not with the same intensity. Now, Trump is just horrifying because he's really going after the centers of the left's power. He has actually gotten rid of 139 federal regulations for every one new one. He has actually given us the biggest tax cut in the history of the federal government. He has actually reduced federal power in meaningful ways, and his Justice Department has argued cases before the Supreme Court that dramatically roll back the state that FDR and the Democrats created for most of a century. So they feel incredibly threatened, whether you're talking about deep staters or their friends in the teachers' unions or whatever you're talking about. And so he is an existential threat, not to democracy, but very much to what they call our democracy, which just means ruled by Democrats.